The unanswered invitation High Mediator Thessian of the Confluence stood in the observation dome of the Council Nexus and watched the stars with a growing sense of unease. For 4,000 years she had served in diplomatic roles of increasing importance, and in all that time she had never encountered a situation quite like this one. The automated first contact protocols had activated 3 weeks ago when a new species achieved quantum-fold travel, crossing the threshold that marked them as ready for galactic society. The species called themselves humans, and they came from a small blue world in an unremarkable arm of the galaxy. The initial contact message had been sent according to standard procedures. The Confluence welcomed all new species with the same carefully crafted message, translated into the newcomers' primary languages through linguistic analysis of their broadcasts. It outlined the benefits of joining galactic civilization, offered technological assistance, promised protection from the dangers of deep space, and extended an invitation to send ambassadors to the Council Nexus. In 4,000 years, every species had responded with some variation of enthusiasm, curiosity, or cautious interest. The humans had responded within 6 hours. Their message was brief, polite, and utterly unprecedented. Message received and understood. We appreciate the contact. No further communication is necessary at this time. We wish you continued prosperity. Thessian had read the message 17 times, certain there must be some translation error. Species did not decline first contact. It simply did not happen. The galaxy was vast and dangerous. New species needed guidance, protection, and the accumulated knowledge of older civilizations. To refuse was to choose isolation over advancement, struggle over support. It made no logical sense. She had convened an emergency session of the Diplomatic Corps. Representatives from 42 different species gathered in the Great Hall, their varied forms occupying spaces designed to accommodate everything from gaseous entities to silicon-based life. The mood was one of confusion mixed with concern. Senior Ambassador Krell of the Valorian hegemony had been the first to speak, his 3 voices harmonizing in the way his species used to express deep thought. Perhaps they misunderstood the message. Their translation technology may be primitive. We should send clarification, Thessian had agreed. A second message was sent, this time with more detail. They explained the Confluence in simple terms, described the great library where all knowledge was shared, mentioned the defense packs that kept member worlds safe, and listed some of the basic technologies they could provide immediately to improve life on Earth. Clean energy generation, advanced medical treatments, atmospheric processing, faster communication systems. The list went on. Any one of these technologies would transform a developing world. The human response came even faster this time. Thank you for the additional information. We have reviewed your offer carefully. We must respectfully decline. We are committed to independent development. We wish the Confluence all the best in your endeavors. Please do not consider our decision as hostile or ungrateful. We simply prefer to forge our own path. That was when Thessian began to worry. She ordered a deep scan of human transmissions to better understand their culture and motivation. The analysis took a week and revealed a complex species with a short but turbulent history. Humans were remarkably diverse for a single-planet species, divided into numerous cultural groups yet united by certain common traits. They valued independence highly. They had a strong distrust of external authority. Their history was filled with cautionary tales about unequal partnerships and exploitative alliances. The Confluence tried everything over the following weeks. They sent gifts, rare minerals harvested from the cores of dead stars, art from civilizations that had flourished 10,000 years ago, samples of technology that could revolutionize human agriculture. The humans returned everything untouched, with polite notes explaining they could not accept such valuable items without reciprocity. They offered trade agreements that would make Earth wealthy beyond imagination, access to markets spanning thousands of worlds. The humans replied that they were developing their own economic systems and were not seeking external trade relationships at this time. They even offered humanity a seat on the Confluence Council itself, something that usually took new species centuries to earn. This was an extraordinary gesture, one that demonstrated just how perplexed and concerned the Confluence had become. The human response to this offer arrived within an hour. While deeply honored by this offer, we must decline. We are not prepared to take on the responsibilities of council membership. We prefer to focus on our own development before engaging in broader galactic governance. Our decision is final. Thessian stood before the full Confluence Council, 400 representatives from 89 species, and tried to explain the inexplicable. She pulled up holographic displays showing human space. In just 3 weeks since their refusal, humanity had established new colonies in 6 different star systems. They had built orbital habitats around gas giants and were actively mining asteroids in regions the Confluence had barely surveyed. Their expansion was aggressive, systematic, and completely self-directed. They were not waiting for permission or guidance. They were simply moving forward on their own terms. Council member Dravik, a towering crystalline being from the Shattered Rim, projected a question through the translation matrix. What do they fear? What could make a species reject the greatest achievement of galactic civilization? Thessian had anticipated this question. She had spent the last 72 hours reviewing everything they knew about human culture and history. She believed she understood now, though the understanding brought no comfort. They do not fear us, council member. They suspect us. The chamber erupted in protests and expressions of disbelief that ranged from chemical releases to subsonic harmonics. The Confluence was the pinnacle of peaceful cooperation. They had ended countless wars, shared miraculous technologies, and brought prosperity to billions of beings across thousands of worlds. What was there to suspect? Thessian raised her primary appendage for silence. Our intelligence division managed to intercept fragments of human internal communications. They are heavily encrypted, but we were able to decode portions. The humans have been studying us. They have analyzed our structure, our treaties, our history. She displayed translated text across the main viewing field. Words and phrases appeared stark and troubling. Power imbalance, technology dependence, permanent client status, controlled sovereignty, economic subordination. The humans had not just declined the Confluence's offer. They had examined it, analyzed its long-term implications, and found it unacceptable. Council member Vryn of the Nexari Collective, one of the oldest species in the Confluence, spoke in a voice that carried the weight of 3,000 years of history. They think we would make them subordinate. Thessian felt something she had not experienced in centuries of diplomatic service. Shame. She looked at the structure of the Confluence with fresh eyes, trying to see it as the humans saw it. The founding species controlled the most important trade routes. They held the keys to the most advanced technologies. They commanded the largest military forces. New species joined and received aid, protection, and knowledge. But they never truly caught up. The gap between founding members and newer species remained constant or even widened over time. Newer species contributed resources and labor, but rarely achieved positions of real power. The system worked. It had worked for 4,000 years. Everyone benefited, but the humans had looked at this system and seen not opportunity but a trap. What happens now? Vryn asked. Thessian had been modeling outcomes since the first refusal. She displayed 3 scenarios. In the first, humanity collapsed under the weight of isolation, unable to solve the countless challenges of space colonization without guidance. They would eventually beg to join the Confluence on any terms. In the second scenario, they stagnated without access to advanced knowledge, remaining a minor regional power that eventually faded into irrelevance. In the third scenario, they continued their independent development and expansion, eventually becoming a rival power center in the galaxy. And which outcome do you predict? Vryn pressed. Thessian looked at the displays showing human expansion, at the colony world springing up with surprising speed, at the ships moving through space using drives the Confluence experts said should not exist yet, at the encryption their best codebreakers could not crack. She thought about human history, filled with stories of groups that chose hard freedom over easy subordination. I predict the third scenario, council member. The chamber fell silent. For 4,000 years, the Confluence had been the only path to the stars, the only model for galactic civilization, the only system that mattered. Every species had joined because there was no alternative. Now, for the first time, a species had chosen to create their own alternative, and they were not failing. They were succeeding. Council member Vryn stood, his ancient form somehow still commanding absolute attention. Send another message to the humans. Tell them we respect their decision. Tell them our borders and markets remain open should they ever choose to engage with us. Tell them we hope to meet them as equals one day. Thessian bowed in the formal manner of her people. As you command, council member. She left the Great Hall to draft the message, but her mind was elsewhere. The confluence had always assumed its way was the only way, that their offer was irresistible because no species could thrive alone in the vast darkness of space. The humans were proving that assumption wrong. They had looked at the greatest civilization in the galaxy and said, "No, thank you. We will do this ourselves." As Thessian composed the message, carefully choosing words that would convey respect without revealing the confluence's growing uncertainty, she received an alert from the Deep Space Monitoring Network. Human ships had just appeared in 47 different star systems simultaneously. Not in confluence space, but in unclaimed regions that the Council had marked for future expansion. The humans were not just refusing to join galactic civilization, they were building their own. For the first time in 4,000 years, the confluence faced a question it had never had to answer. What happens when someone not only says no but proves they do not need you? Thessian did not know the answer, but she suspected they were all about to find out. She looked at the star maps, at the expanding bubble of human space, at the networks of colonies and stations and ships growing like a crystalline structure in the dark. The humans called their civilization the Network. It was an appropriate name. They were building something new, something the galaxy had never seen before, and the confluence, ancient and mighty, could only watch and wonder if their age of unchallenged dominance was coming to an end. The confluence's growing fear. 5 months had passed since humanity's first refusal, and High Mediator Thessian found herself in an emergency session of the Security Directorate. The mood in the room was tense. Around the circular conference chamber, military advisors and intelligence officers from a dozen different species reviewed data streams and argued in hushed tones. Commander Zerol of the Confluence Defense Fleet stood at the center of the display field, his massive frame rigid with frustration. "We need to know what they are building." The holographic projection showed human space now expanded to include colonies in 32 star systems. But it was not the expansion that worried the confluence. It was the construction. Orbital structures of unprecedented scale surrounded nearly every human world. Massive arrays of satellites formed geometric patterns that served no obvious purpose, and everywhere the strange quantum signatures that human ships left behind. Signatures that the confluence's best sensors could barely detect. Thessian accessed the intelligence reports with a gesture. "We have tried surveillance. Captain Marin's stealth fleet was detected every single time they approached human space. Their detection systems are beyond our understanding." Zerol's combat tendrils flexed in agitation. "That should be impossible. We have been refining stealth technology for thousands of years. These humans have been in space for barely a decade. There must be an explanation." "There is," Thessian said quietly. "They developed detection systems based on completely different principles than ours. We have been listening for engine signatures and electromagnetic emissions. The humans appear to be detecting quantum field distortions caused by our stealth drives themselves. They saw the invisible by looking for what the invisible disturbed." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The confluence had built their technology on foundations laid thousands of years ago. Every new species that joined contributed their innovations, but always within the established framework. The humans had no such framework. They had started from zero and taken entirely different paths. Junior analyst Krivix, a young member of the Vexen Collective, brought up a new display. "There is something else. 3 of our member species have been sending covert messages to human space. They are asking questions about independence." Thessian felt her respiratory system constrict. Which species? The Kelnar Protectorate, the Silvari Republic, and the Then Alliance. All younger members, all joined the confluence within the last 800 years. The messages are not hostile to the confluence, but they are asking humans how they have achieved rapid expansion without external support. They are asking about the Network. Council member Vryn, attending via holographic link, materialized in the chamber. His ancient form flickered with what might have been concern. "How have the humans responded to these inquiries?" Krevix pulled up translated fragments of human responses. "The humans have been surprisingly forthcoming. They are sharing information about their decentralized governance model, their open-source technology development, their economic system based on mutual benefit rather than hierarchical trade. They have not encouraged rebellion, but they have answered questions honestly." "This is exactly what I feared," Thessian said. "Humanity is not just refusing our offer. They are demonstrating an alternative. If other species see that independence is possible, The entire structure of the confluence could destabilize. Zeral's combat form shifted into an aggressive posture. Then we must act. I propose we send the friendship fleet to human space, not as a threat but as a clear demonstration of our concern. A peaceful observation fleet that shows we are monitoring the situation. Thessian considered the proposal. The friendship fleet was a formation of 300 vessels, technically civilian ships armed only with defensive weapons. It was used for humanitarian missions and peaceful demonstrations of confluence power. It had never been used to intimidate, but there was a first time for everything. Very well, but Commander Zeral, your orders are clear. Observe only. No hostile actions, no territorial violations. This is a diplomatic mission with military assets. Zeral bowed in acknowledgement, and the preparations began. It took 2 weeks to assemble the fleet and position it at the edge of human space. The formation was impressive. 300 ships in perfect geometric array, their hulls gleaming with the symbols of the confluence. They transmitted friendly greetings and explained they were there to ensure peaceful coexistence and mutual understanding. The human response came within minutes. Attention, Confluence Fleet. Your presence has been noted. We request that you withdraw to a distance of at least 20 light-years from human territorial boundaries. We appreciate your stated peaceful intentions, but we value our privacy and autonomy. Please comply within 12 hours. Zeral was offended by the directness of the message. We are in neutral space. We have every right to be here. He ordered the fleet to maintain position. Exactly 11 hours and 58 minutes later, human ships appeared. Not just a few ships, but hundreds of them, materializing from quantum-fold space in perfect formation around the friendship fleet. They had not been detected approaching. They had not been tracked. They were simply suddenly there, each human vessel positioned precisely to bracket a confluence ship. The communication that followed was delivered by a human who identified herself as Fleet Coordinator Sarah Chen. Commander Zeral, your fleet is now surrounded. We have targeting locks on every vessel. We do not want conflict, but you are testing our boundaries. You have 2 minutes to begin withdrawal, or we will escort you out. Your choice. Zeral stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The human ships were smaller than most confluence vessels, but there were so many of them, and they had appeared without warning. His sensors were screaming contradictions. The human weapons were active, but using energy signatures his systems did not recognize. The ships themselves seemed to flicker in and out of normal space as if they were not entirely committed to this dimension. He made the only logical decision. All ships begin withdrawal. Maintain defensive formations. The human fleet paced them for 6 hours, matching their every move with eerie precision. Not a single human ship broke formation or showed any sign of aggression. They were simply there, a silent reminder that human space was defended by capabilities the confluence did not understand. When the friendship fleet finally crossed the boundary Coordinator Chen had specified, the human ships vanished as suddenly as they had appeared. Zeral filed his report with a sense of deep unease. He had commanded fleets for 300 years. He had fought in 2 major conflicts and dozens of minor engagements. He had never felt as outmatched as he did in that 6-hour withdrawal. The humans had not fired a shot, but they had made their point with absolute clarity. Human space was off limits and the confluence could do nothing about it. Thessian read the report and felt her worst fears crystallizing into reality. She called an emergency meeting of the Science Directorate and presented them with a single question. How is this possible? How can a species achieve this level of technological advancement in less than a decade of space travel? Chief Researcher Talvin, a being of pure mathematics existing in a crystalline matrix, processed the data for hours before responding. The answer is uncomfortable, High Mediator. The humans are using artificial intelligence in ways we banned thousands of years ago. Our treaties limit AI development to prevent existential risks. The humans have no such limits. They have merged their intelligence with machine intelligence in a way that accelerates innovation exponentially. But the risks, someone objected. AI that advanced could turn against its creators. Talvin's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been irony. Yet it has not. The humans appear to have solved the alignment problem we consider unsolvable, or perhaps they simply accepted risks we would not. Either way, they have access to computational and creative capabilities that far exceed our own. Every human ship likely contains intelligence equivalent to our entire research directorate. Every colony probably includes research facilities more advanced than our best laboratories. The implications were staggering. The confluence had built its success on the careful accumulation and sharing of knowledge over thousands of years. The humans had compressed that timeline by orders of magnitude through a technology the confluence had deliberately abandoned as too dangerous. Over the following months, the situation continued to deteriorate. Trade between human space and several confluence border worlds began unofficially. Human goods started appearing in markets often superior in quality to confluence equivalents and sold at lower prices. Human entertainment, art, and culture spread through galactic networks. Humans did not advertise or proselytize, but their presence was growing. More concerning were the political shifts. 7 confluence member species publicly declared themselves neutral in any potential human confluence dispute. They did not leave the confluence, but they made clear they would not support military action against humanity. 2 species went further, opening formal diplomatic channels with human space despite confluence objections. Thessian watched the alliance she had served for centuries begin to fracture. The confluence had always maintained unity through a combination of mutual benefit and the absence of alternatives. Now there was an alternative, and it was proving remarkably attractive. The final blow came when human representatives released a comprehensive analysis of confluence power structures. The document was not hostile or inflammatory. It was simply analytical, showing with mathematical precision how the confluence system concentrated power and resources in the hands of founding species, while newer members remained permanently subordinate. It compared economic flows, technology transfer rates, and political influence across 4,000 years of confluence history. The conclusions were damning. The document spread across the galaxy within days. Public opinion, especially among younger species, shifted dramatically. Protests erupted on a dozen worlds. Calls for reform echoed through the Confluence Council chambers. The humans had not attacked the confluence. They had simply held up a mirror and forced the galaxy to see what it had become. Thessian stood once again in the observation dome, watching human space on the strategic display. The network, as the humans called their civilization, now included 47 star systems and was growing every week. Other species were studying their model with open curiosity. The galaxy was changing, and the confluence was no longer the only force shaping that change. Commander Zaral approached her, his combat form subdued. The military faction is proposing containment measures. They want to establish a blockade around human space, prevent further expansion. Thessian felt a chill run through her body. That would be an act of war. They call it protective isolation, preventing a destabilizing influence from spreading. Zaral paused. High Mediator, I'm a military officer. I follow orders. But I must tell you that I do not believe we can contain humanity by force. Their technology is too advanced, their expansion too rapid. If we try to impose a blockade, I believe we will lose. Then we have only one option left, Thessian said. We must talk to them. Really talk to them. Not as supplicants offering charity to primitives, but as equals seeking common ground. They do not want to talk. They have made that clear. Thessian watched another human colony ship launch toward an unclaimed system. They do not want to be subordinate. Perhaps if we approach them differently, if we acknowledge what they have built and offer genuine partnership rather than paternal guidance, they might listen. Or perhaps, Zaral said quietly, we need to accept that the age of the confluence as we have known it is ending. Perhaps humanity is not the problem but the catalyst for necessary change. Thessian did not respond, but she knew he was right. The confluence had believed its way was the only way for so long that it had stopped questioning its own assumptions. Humanity had forced those questions back into the light. The answers, she suspected, would reshape the entire galaxy. The new reality. The emergency session of the Confluence Grand Council was the most chaotic in recorded history. 400 representatives from 89 species filled the Great Hall, and for the first time in 4,000 years they were not united. The chamber had divided into 3 distinct factions, each occupying a separate section of the vast space. The military faction, led by Commander Zaral and supported by 32 species, advocated for what they called protective containment. The diplomatic faction, nominally led by High Mediator Thessian but increasingly fragmented, sought negotiated solutions. And the reform faction, a new and growing coalition of younger species, demanded fundamental changes to confluence structure. The debate had raged for 6 hours when Council Member Vryn finally called for order. His ancient voice cut through the chaos with surprising force. Enough. We have talked in circles while the situation deteriorates. Commander Zeril, present your proposal. Zeril projected tactical displays across the chamber. Humanity now controls 53 star systems and is expanding at a rate of 2 new colonies per month. Their influence is spreading. 14 species have established independent trade relationships with human space. 7 have declared neutrality. 3 are openly questioning their confluence membership. If we do not act now, we will lose all leverage. I propose we establish a security perimeter around human space. No military action, simply a boundary that prevents further expansion while we negotiate. It is a blockade, Representative Kaya of the Reform faction countered. You are proposing an act of war against a civilization that has never threatened us. They threaten our entire way of life. A voice from the military faction responded. Because they offer an alternative, Kaya shot back. Because they show that independence is possible. You are afraid of ideas, not weapons. The debate threatened to spiral again, but Thessian raised her primary appendage. Commander Zeril, I must ask directly, can we enforce such a perimeter? Do we have the capability to contain humanity by force if necessary? Zeril hesitated, and in that hesitation, Thessian saw the truth. His combat tendrils flexed in a gesture she had learned to recognize as deep uncertainty. High Mediator, I am not certain. Human technology has advanced in ways we do not understand. Their quantum fold drives are faster than ours. Their detection systems can find our stealth ships. Their weapons use principles our shields were not designed to counter. In a defensive posture, protecting their own space, I believe they would be extremely difficult to overcome. Then your proposal is not protective containment, Kaya said. It is an act of aggression we cannot guarantee to succeed. You are risking everything the confluence has built on a gamble. Before Zeril could respond, alarms sounded throughout the Council nexus. Emergency alerts flooded every display. Thessian's command interface lit up with priority messages. She opened the tactical feed and felt her respiratory system fail for several seconds. Human ships. Hundreds of them. They had appeared simultaneously at every major confluence military installation, every fleet staging area, every defensive position. Not inside confluence space, but at the exact boundaries. Perfectly positioned. Perfectly coordinated. The chamber erupted in pandemonium. Species that had argued for containment now faced the reality of what containment would mean. The humans had not attacked. They had simply demonstrated that they knew where every confluence military asset was positioned and could reach them all at once. It was a message that needed no translation. Thessian accessed the communication network and found a priority transmission waiting. It was tagged with human diplomatic codes. She opened it, and the main display showed a human woman in simple gray attire. She appeared to be in her 50s with sharp eyes that conveyed both intelligence and weariness. I am Minister Elena Vasquez, representing the United Human Systems. I am sending this message to the full Confluence Council because the time for silence has passed. We have monitored your debate. We know about the proposed blockade. We want to be very clear about our position before any decisions are made that cannot be unmade. The chamber fell completely silent. In 4,000 years, no species had ever interrupted a Confluence Grand Council session. Yet here was a human, speaking directly to them without invitation or permission. Elena Vasquez continued, Humanity has never sought conflict with the Confluence. We declined your offer of membership not out of hostility, but out of principle. We studied your system carefully. We saw that species who join become dependent on Confluence technology and can never achieve true parity with founding members. We saw economic structures that benefit older species at the expense of newer ones. We saw a hierarchy disguised as partnership. We chose a different path not because your path is evil, but because it was not ours to take. She paused and the display shifted to show human space, the networks of colonies and stations and ships all connected by streams of data and trade. We have built something we call the network. It is not a hierarchy. It is a web of relationships based on mutual benefit and shared knowledge. Every human colony has access to the same technology. Every human ship can communicate instantly with every other. We develop our innovations openly and share them freely among ourselves. We have no clients. We have no subordinates. We have only partners in a common endeavor. The display shifted again, showing the galaxy with human space and confluent space marked in different colors. You fear what we represent. You fear that other species will see our example and seek independence. You are correct to fear this, but not for the reasons you think. The problem is not that we are destabilizing the confluence. The problem is that the confluence has been unstable for thousands of years, held together by the absence of alternatives rather than by genuine shared interest. We did not create the cracks in your foundation. We simply revealed them. Vasquez's expression softened slightly. But here is what you need to understand. We do not want your destruction. We do not seek to replace the confluence with the network. We believe the galaxy is large enough for multiple models of civilization. Some species may prefer the structure and stability you offer. Others may prefer the independence and risk we have chosen. Neither approach is wrong. They are simply different. The display now showed both human and confluent ships side by side. I am authorized to propose something unprecedented. Open borders. Free trade. Cultural exchange. Not membership, not alliance, but peaceful coexistence. You govern your space according to your principles. We govern ours according to ours. Species that wish to join either or neither are free to make their choice. The galaxy becomes a marketplace of ideas rather than a monopoly. She leaned forward, her gaze seeming to focus on each council member individually. But if you choose the path of containment, if you attempt to blockade our space or restrict our expansion, you will force us to defend ourselves. And I promise you the cost will be catastrophic for everyone, not because we are stronger than you, but because war is always catastrophic. And the galaxy has been at peace for so long that you have forgotten what war truly means. The transmission ended, and the chamber remained silent for a long moment. Finally, Council Member Vryn spoke. She is offering us a choice. Adapt or conflict. Thessian accessed her personal files and pulled up the analysis she had been working on for weeks. She displayed it for the full council. I have been studying the human proposal and modeling outcomes. If we choose conflict, the best projections give us a 30% chance of successful containment. But even in success, we would lose. At least 20 species would leave the confluence during or after the conflict. Our economy would be disrupted for decades. Our moral authority would be destroyed. We would win the battle and lose everything that makes the confluence worth preserving. And if we accept their proposal, Ziril asked. His combat form relaxed now, the fight gone from him. Thessian displayed alternate scenarios. We transform. The confluence becomes one option among several, rather than the only option. We lose our monopoly, but we keep our purpose. Species that value what we offer will remain or join. Species that prefer independence can choose that path. We become partners in a diverse galaxy, rather than controllers of a unified empire we were always going to lose anyway. The Reform faction representative Kaya stepped forward. I propose we accept the human offer. I propose we reform Confluence membership terms to offer genuine partnership rather than permanent subordination. I propose we prove that the Confluence can adapt and evolve. The vote took 3 hours. It was not unanimous. The military faction fought to the end, and 17 species voted against the proposal. But the majority, weary of conflict and increasingly aware that the old order could not be maintained by force, voted for change. Thessian was given the task of delivering the Confluence response to humanity. She recorded the message in her private chambers, choosing her words carefully. Minister Vasquez, on behalf of the Confluence Grand Council, I accept your proposal. We will open our borders. We will engage in trade and cultural exchange. We will allow member species to choose their own path, including the path of independence if they wish. We will reform our structures to address the inequalities you have identified. She paused, gathering her thoughts. You were right about us. We had become complacent. We had mistaken stability for justice and tradition for wisdom. You did not destroy the confluence. You held up a mirror and forced us to see what we had become. For that, despite the chaos and fear of these past months, I thank you. The response came within a day. Elena Vasquez appeared on the display again, but this time she was smiling. High Mediator Thessian, we accept. Welcome to the new galaxy. The years that followed were turbulent. 8 species left the confluence entirely, choosing to model themselves after the human network. 12 more renegotiated their membership terms, gaining greater autonomy and technological access. The confluence itself underwent reforms that would have been unthinkable a year earlier. Trade between human space and confluence space flourished. Human culture spread, and confluence culture found new audiences in human worlds. 10 years after the first contact, Thessian stood once again in the observation dome. The display showed a galaxy far more complex than the one she had known. Multiple alliance systems existed. Some species remained in the confluence, some joined the human network. Some created hybrid models or chose complete independence. There were tensions and disputes, but there was also innovation and creativity, on a scale the galaxy had not seen in thousands of years. Elena Vasquez visited the Council Nexus as an official guest, the first human to set foot on the station. Thessian met her at the docking port. "Minister Vasquez, welcome. I hope you will find our hospitality adequate." Elena smiled. "Please call me Elena, and I am certain it will be wonderful. Your reputation for hospitality is legendary." They walked through corridors filled with beings from across the galaxy. And Thessian noticed how many different species were present now, including several who had never visited before. The diversity was greater than ever. "Elena, I have wanted to ask you something since this began. Did you know what would happen? Did you predict that refusing our offer would lead to all of this?" Elena considered the question carefully. "We knew it would change things. We knew the galaxy could not stay the same once there was an alternative to the confluence. But we did not know if the change would be peaceful or violent, constructive or destructive. We took a risk. You gambled with the peace of the entire galaxy." Elena nodded. "We did, but we gambled that intelligent beings, when given a choice, would choose adaptation over destruction. We gambled on hope." They reached the observation dome together and looked out at the stars. "And you were right," Thessian said. "The galaxy is better for it. More complex, more challenging, but better." Elena placed a hand on the viewing window. "Humanity has a saying, the opposite of a correct statement is a false statement. But the opposite of a profound truth may well be another profound truth. The confluence way is not wrong. The network way is not wrong. They are both true for different people in different circumstances. The galaxy is large enough for both." Thessian realized that this was the lesson humanity had taught them. Not that the confluence was bad, but that it was not the only answer. There were many ways to reach the stars, many paths to prosperity and peace. The galaxy did not need one system. It needed the freedom to explore many. A new era had begun. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy or destroyed its institutions. They had simply proved something that had seemed impossible. They had said no, and the word had set everyone free.